Hello and welcome on into episode number 4 of this PHFL NFL podcast, our week 6 review, joined as always by Kai and Mikey. Hello gentlemen.
How are we? I'm back and better than ever.
Yes, that's what some people say. Not sure
Unfortunately,
how many people say it, but some people do. And hello Mikey
Me.
as well. I see you hiding down the bottom there.
Sorry, just checking some final notes for the podcast.
That's Mikey being really organised this week.
Prepared as always.
We're always really prepared, doesn't everyone know that? No?
Yeah.
We don't have any Thursday night football to talk about this week because it got moved because of all the games being moved about last week for COVID. So we're on to our Sunday slate of games. And the first one of those was a game that had been delayed from the week before. So again, surprise, surprise, COVID related stuff happening again in the NFL. But it was the Denver Broncos travelling to the New England Patriots. The Denver Broncos managed to win 18 points to 12 without scoring a touchdown. Their kicker on Twitter was saying something about that as well, saying that there was only something like 5% of players in fantasy who'd actually started them, and maybe you should be starting them more often.
Like after last week now.
But I've just got down here, it was poor from both offences. I didn't think it was a very good game.
No. When the only touchdown comes from a 1 yard rush from Cam Newton, which is bread and butter to him, to be fair. It really wasn't very good at all. Like you said, Brandon McManus will probably have the sorest leg in the world. He would have come off on Sunday night with one leg massive, one tiny wee puny thing.
On the Denver side of the ball, Lindsay did well in the absence of Melvin Gordon, who was apparently absent because of illness and nothing to do with the DUI offence that happened.
Yeah.
The illness meant that he was hungover. That's what he meant by that.
Very possible.
He managed to cover that up quite well.
Yeah.
Cam Newton was the leading rusher for the New England Patriots. No surprises there. Some of the breakouts had happened in previous weeks for some of the running backs didn't happen this week. And through a couple of interceptions, to be honest, I just think neither of these offences were particularly great in this game.
Yeah.
I don't think too much can be taken from the Patriots side of the ball, because what happened to the Patriots this week is what I was expecting the Titans to play like last week, just coming out of the wrong bye week that they were meant to have and being sluggish because of COVID. That's what I feel that's what happened with New England this week. Obviously, they had Hoyer in last time they played. This time they had Cam back, but just an overall sluggish performance. Nothing was clicking for them. That's what I expected the Titans to do last week when they came out. But yeah, it wasn't the best of games. As we said, Brandon McManus, 24 fantasy points. He's been brought in on one of the leagues that I've got a kicker in. So yeah, it'll be guaranteed he'll only get like 3 points this week or something like that, because that's what happens in fantasy.
Last week, did you say?
No, he was on the waivers last week, so picked him up.
I was giving you this stat before the week that Bill Belichick at Gillette had only lost to one first or second year quarterback before this game, with that being Colin Kaepernick. The start last decade, but this is the second time in 30 odd attempts or something that a first or second year QB has won against Belichick and Gillette. So
on the subject of facts, the other one that I came across was so the Patriots have a losing record through their first 5 games of a season. It's the first time it's happened since 2001. In 2001, they finished 11-5 and won the Super Bowl.
Can I make Adam's outlandish prediction that they're not going to win the Super Bowl
this week?
I wasn't suggesting that they would. I don't think it takes a scientist to work out they're probably not going to win it again.
I'm saying nothing because Bill. You can.
I was going to say with Bill Belichick, you never know. He might start under centre 1 week, knowing him. The way it's going.
I don't know if I'd want to see that, to be honest. But I think the fact that we're talking about all these stats tells us that the game wasn't particularly interesting.
No.
So we can move on to the next one. That was hopefully a little bit more interesting. And for me, it certainly was. You had the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. The Titans won 42-36 after overtime. And my first note here is Henry is a beast. 212 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. Mikey. Any?
I just love the guy. I genuinely just love Derek Henry. I don't know if it's because I've got him in both teams in fantasy this year, but I think me and Kai were talking the other day about not last season, but the season before, because he obviously won the Russian title last season. So 2 seasons ago, he wasn't. I wouldn't have put him in the elite running back category 2 seasons ago. Good running back, but I don't know if he was just waiting to come through. But I mean, I was hearing about some of his high school stats and things like that, and college stats, just crazy numbers. And I actually remember the kind of first time, I think it was last season against the Jags, when he had that big 100-yard run, where he face masked someone down to the floor. The guy could be a defensive lineman easily. He could be playing alongside Aaron Donald or something like that, but he's playing at running back. And that 90-odd yard run that he had, the way he just ran by those defensive backs as if he was Henry Ruggs or something like that, or Tyreek Hill, it was insane for a guy that's like, what, 250 plus pounds? I don't understand.
I think I said that when we were watching it, that it's not fair that a man of that size can run at that pace.
Yeah.
Let's
just say.
What was your comment? I'm pretty sure you said, do you think if you and Derek Henry both ran at each other at full pace, do you think you would die?
And I think you said you'd probably never walk again. Let's just put it that way.
Aye.
But I guarantee that those Texans DBs will be doing a lot of sprints this week to try and maybe catch up with next week's running backs. But yeah, just a ridiculous performance from Derek Henry, and it's one of those where you're not surprised to see it, because this is just part and parcel of his whole package. Like it's just the way he is.
I actually feel a little bit sorry for Houston, because at one point I thought they were going to win that game. Before Tennessee got that touchdown at the end, and then obviously won it in overtime. For Houston's side of the ball, quite an unusual occurrence that they're starting running back, they're starting tight end, and their 3 starting wide receivers all got a touchdown each. So all 5 of the skill positions actually got a touchdown, but they still lost the game there. I thought it was a better performance for Houston than it had been in the past.
They looked more Texans-like, or trademark Texans, what you've probably come to expect of them in the last season or two. But I think I would say the most significant point in the game in my eyes, and I think it tells you all you need to know about Ryan Tannehill and the Titans this season, is when Deshaun Watson saw that the Texans had lost the toss, and he just sighed and rolled his eyes. He knew fine well that I think he knew they'd lost then, because I think it was like 4 plays after they got the ball at the start of overtime and the ball was in the end zone. Like, it's very, very efficient. Tannehill's 12-3 as a starter since he joined the Titans, I think, which is a pretty impressive record.
Yeah, it's and his stats, I think I talked about them last week, in comparison to Lamar Jackson as well. Were somewhat comparable, and Jackson got MVP last year, so it shows that Tannehill is doing a good job there.
Flies under the radar.
Yeah, also shows you that Mikey traded for him in Dynasty this week as well. So Mikey must like Tannehill.
I brought him in. Yep, needed a set and forget quarterback, and I think Ryan Tannehill is easily a top 5 fantasy quarterback from here on out, and since he basically started for the Titans. But one thing I kind of noticed, just with the amount of receivers that Deshaun Watson threw to, this was kind of the first performance. I know they lost, but this was the first performance where I thought they didn't really miss DeAndre Hopkins as much as they have in previous weeks. Will Fuller, 123 yards. And then you had Darren Fells with 85 yards, Brandon Cooks with 68, then a few other receivers down the 10, 20-yard mark. That if they can continue to keep this up, this week was a tough matchup. If they can continue that, I don't think they'll have any problems. I think we spoke about last week the fact that Atlanta Falcons were 1-6 to start the season last season and then finished strong. I think this will be a similar kind of season for the Texans. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I think now that the Bill O'Brien year is over, we'll start to see this team put together results.
Well, my coupon hopes you're correct, Mikey, because I did put Texans to win this division at the start of the year. So I'm hoping that they do really well, get to the playoffs and win this division.
But I mean, something tells me they might not do that well.
For that to happen, I think Derek Henry and Ryan Tannehill would have to run into each other for that to happen, and both be injured for the rest of the season. But Titans looking fantastic. I mean, I know they got to the AFC Championship game last year. I don't think anybody really took them seriously, even at the start of this season. But to be one of the only 3 teams left undefeated, they're looking legit this season.
Yes, I totally agree. I almost feel silly for not thinking they were legit, because I mean their team really hadn't changed much since last season, so there was no reason that it shouldn't have been legit. But the more you know, the benefit of hindsight. But certainly, I think both those teams are actually quite good, especially now there's no Bill O'Brien. So I think that AFC South will be fairly competitive, minus one of the teams who I'm sure I'll talk about later, because we all know my hatred of one of the teams. We'll move on to the next game, which was the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, I mean, is demolished the fair word to say there? 38 points to 7. Baker was benched halfway through the second half with an injury, apparently. I mean, apparently there was an injury, but yeah, benched.
I don't know how many times a week teams bench someone because they're playing so badly, and then all of a sudden this phantom injury appears. Now, I know Baker Mayfield went into that game with some sort of injury tag on him, but that's just an easy way out when he's playing bad. I don't think he was playing bad because he was injured. I think he was playing bad because he's rubbish.
I think he was playing bad because that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is unbelievable. The pass rush in that defense.
Definitely, in my opinion.
That Pittsburgh team is unbelievable, I would say.
I mean, we were, I don't know about you two, but before kickoff on Sunday night, I put in our predictions, which we'll speak about later, and this was the one game all week that I was on the fence for. I was like, I don't know how this game's going to go. I think I put down the Steelers, and then as soon as I sent it into the group, I was like, no, I want to pick the Browns. But very glad that I didn't change my opinion, because the Steelers just poured a big bucket of ice all over the hype train that is the Cleveland Browns at the moment. I think if the Browns had won this game, it was more important for the Browns to win this game because they need to look like they're a legit playoff team. Steelers and Ravens are legit playoff teams, and the Browns want to be. And with them all being in the same division, it's a very, very tough division. This game was massive. I think even if you had a Titans-Texans style performance where the Browns lost in the same fashion that the Texans did, there would be plenty of positives to take. But that must be a gut wrencher to know that you have to probably face the Steelers once more, play the Ravens twice as well, and still try and make the playoffs ahead of them too. It's looking like it's going to be an uphill battle, even with a winning record.
Could the Steelers be a dark horse for this year? I don't. I say like dark horse, as in if you coming into this season, I don't think anyone would have sat and said, I think the Steelers will very comfortably win that division and be a really good playoff contender, which they will be. I think that's beyond doubt now. But could they be a dark horse for the full thing to get to the Super Bowl?
I think they could. I think I agree. At the start of the season, I think because of what happened last year, and they were so poor. Now I know they didn't have Big Ben, but everyone has recency bias. They went, "Oh, that team wasn't that great. Is Big Ben going to do enough to that team that didn't function at all?"
Again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it appears so far the answer is yes. And I think, though, to be fair, it's mainly on the defensive side of the ball that they've made big.
But the thing is, Big Ben is a Hall of Fame quarterback, and when you get any Hall of Fame quarterback, I don't care who it is, they're Hall of Fame for a reason, and that's because they're a leader and they benefit their teams. I have a friend who's a Steelers fan, and we were talking about where we think they could go this season, and I said, even if the Steelers stumble their way into the playoffs, I don't think that they will, but say they get the 6th or the 7th seed and they end up being up against someone like the Bills or the Titans, I'm not going to say that the Titans, I know I've just said the Titans look like a legit Super Bowl contender, but when you have an experienced quarterback in the playoffs against someone like Josh Allen, who maybe hasn't won a playoff game yet, it's anyone's game. And that's why I think if the Steelers get to the playoffs, they could legit win the Super Bowls, because they have that experience and they have that defense.
Totally agree with you. Yeah, totally agree. On the Steelers side of the ball, have a wee note here. Juju's been fairly quiet. His last 3 games, he's only had 4, and then 2 receptions. Is that just because teams are just kind of putting their best corner on him, or is he kind of lower down the rankings in terms of where Big Ben's looking?
I think it's probably a combination of both. But I think probably the first point on teams kind of targeting them, I think that will become less of a problem because you now obviously have Chase Claypool as well, who I think teams are going to start becoming a bit more aware of. But I think it benefits the Steelers because if the opposition defense lock up on Juju, the Steelers have enough other weapons now to win games.
Claypool, Johnson, Washington,
Yeah,
Ebron.
like it's not like Juju is the only receiver they've got or the only attacking threat that they have where if teams can limit him to nothing then they'll win the game type thing. There's many teams like that in the league, but the Steelers are definitely not one of them, and that's what I mean in terms of a dark horse. I think other teams have probably not taken notice of them enough this season. And to be like the Titans 5-0 and one of the only undefeated teams in the league, I think they could surprise a lot of folk this season.
Yep. I think you need to clarify your comments there, Adam. Juju Smith-Schuster hasn't been quiet on TikTok and on YouTube and on Instagram. He should be quiet on the field. This guy needs to just stop dancing and actually focus on his football. It's starting to annoy me, and I'm not even a Steelers fan. I see him after the game dancing and stuff like that, and it irritates me because he has kind of fallen out of favour at the Steelers. I don't know if it's, as you said, they've probably got their number one corner on him, but in my opinion, I think Juju is a very elite wide receiver too, like he was with AB, rather than being a lead wide receiver. I think if you put him on the Atlanta Falcons with Julio Jones, he goes back to the production that he had that first season with AB. But as a number one receiver, I mean, I don't think he'll be too annoyed at the moment because he is a team player by the sounds of things, and he wants to. If he only gets 5 receiving yards a game and the team gets the win, I think he'll be happy with that. But he is pulling a lot of attention off the other younger receivers. So I guess they can't complain at the moment because, as we said, they're undefeated and the rest of the wide receivers are playing really well at the moment.
I think Pittsburgh were looking for Deontay Johnson to take over the Antonio Brown role to give Juju that chance to still stay in the slot and stuff like that. Yeah. And obviously, as the Deontay Johnson owner in both fantasy leagues, he's been injured quite a lot this season, so that's not really worked. But he's hopefully coming back, and you never know, as you say, if they use Johnson as the kind of main X receiver, maybe Juju will get more targets in that slot. I'll just quickly touch on the Cleveland side of the ball. They didn't rush a lot, which is, I think we've worked out, when they rush a lot, they win games, and when they have to pass a lot, they don't win games. I think that's the easiest way to describe the Cleveland Browns at the moment.
It's almost similar to the Ravens, but Ravens being on a more elite level of the way that they rush. But the fact that they're in the same division, it'll be interesting to see their matchups, whether they will run the ball head-to-head against each other and what happens when one of those teams are losing. So that, as we said, that division is just very, very interesting going forward.
Yeah, totally agree. Talking about the Baltimore Ravens, Mikey, I'd like that segue. That's good. We'll go on to the next game. We'll go on to the next game, which is the Baltimore Ravens at Kai's Philadelphia Eagles. Baltimore won 30 points to 28. There was a fourth quarter comeback from Philadelphia. Kai, could you talk about that last play?
If I could be in the mind of Doug Peterson just for like 2 minutes before that play and envision how he wanted it to go, I would imagine it would have been a work of art. It would have been one of his signature kind of, not trick plays because it wasn't, but like like one of those plays that everyone's like, what the hell just happened? You then go into the mind of Carson Wentz, and he's probably going, right, this is going to be good. And I have no idea what they tried to do. I think it was Boston Scott that was running with him. The two of them just held onto the ball at the same time. Like, one of you let go of it for 2 seconds and let the other one run through. Like, yeah. I think Boston Scott was running backwards as well.
Yeah, it was an option play that neither of them took the option and then got in each other's way. It was fairly embarrassing. I'll not make you touch on that too much because you could have got an overtime game there against the probably one of the best teams in football. My other question for you before you go on your 30 seconds you're allowed to talk about the game for the Eagles is what are Philly actually trying to do with Jalen Hurts?
I don't know. This kind of crossed my mind during the game as well. and it kind of popped up. I heard a couple of folk talking about it as well. They seem to kind of use him everywhere but quarterback, and the kind of vibe I get off him is like a Taysom Hill at the Saints thing. He's very much he seems to be used as a utility man. Like he'll go under centre in a play where Carson Wentz either isn't in or Carson Wentz doesn't get the ball. He's lined up at wide receiver. He's found himself rushing with the ball. Like, I kind of feel for the guy a wee bit, but also I don't really think he'll mind because he's on the field and he's getting snaps. I would quite like to see him playing in the position that he was drafted in.
You see, like, I see him and Taysom Hill as kind of gimmicks at the moment, is the way they're playing.
Uh-huh.
And when you're the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees and you're normally an above 500 record, you can afford to use gimmicks. But when you're as bad as what the Eagles are at the moment, you can't really afford to just play football the way football's meant to be
played.
played.
Do the basic bits well, then start using gimmicks.
Yeah.
The thing with Jalen Hurts, though, is that when he was at Oklahoma as a quarterback in his last season before he got drafted, he rushed for over 1,000 yards. I mean, that's...
he is a rushing quarterback, but he's not being used as a rushing quarterback. He's being used as like a weird utility running back.
Knife. Yeah, but I mean, I think I said as soon as they get drafted that I said this about the Eagles and about the Patriots actually, that I wouldn't be surprised to see Carson Wentz as quarterback and maybe seeing some designed run plays for Jalen Hurts at running back. Same with maybe Cam Newton if they were on the 1 yard line, and have Brian Hoyer just to kind of use him as a decoy. But I think we want to see that with Jalen Hurts, but it's just not been executed the way that we want to see it. I would have even been considering doing some kind of 2-point play at the end of the game with Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz at the same time, because that totally throws off the Ravens D. But I'm not a head coach, so I don't really know as much. But just from watching that game in the 2-point conversion, I thought try and bring in Jalen Hurts, because it's just going to completely throw off. Who's going to throw it? There's 2 options that can throw it. Who's going to run it? There's 3 options that could run it. I just think that makes it an interesting play. But I think we will see Jalen Hurts get used more and more as the season goes. But I would only say if the Eagles are winning, and with the injury problems they've had lately, they're going to struggle to pick up wins at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz with that huge, 40-yard run, I was impressed. A boy of his size, it was almost like seeing a Derek Henry type physique running, because I think Carson Wentz is 6'5".
He's not the most mobile man in the world, is he?
No, but he did well. On the other side of the ball, after a disappointing showing in terms of rushing last week, Lamar Jackson listened to all his fantasy owners and gave you 108 yards on the ground with a touchdown. So everyone can stop complaining that Lamar isn't rushing anymore.
Can I take back my trade talk thing from last week?
Oh no, I'm still going to try and give you Justin Herbert.
You're like, it's like dangling like a nice big cake in front of me because I like Justin Herbert.
As the Hollywood Brown owner, if Lamar could maybe just throw the ball a little bit more to him, that'd be good. And then
he did that a couple of times this week.
Yeah, but like the decent Hollywood Brown throws from last year when they were like 70 yards, that'd be appreciated.
I think that's what you need.
Yeah,
but
just weird looking at the stat sheet here. The fact that J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Mark Ingram combined rushed for about 74 yards, whereas Lamar Jackson rushed for 108. It really is if you were to say that a team is the number one rushing team in the league, you would expect them to have the rushing leader. You would expect them to have a Derrick Henry in the team, but the fact that they don't, and they have 4 players who always get rushing yards, is just very cool to watch. I love those little fake handoffs and just seeing Lamar Jackson run through the middle and things like that. It's just such an exciting offense.
Yep, totally agree. I think they're one of the best teams in football. And to be fair, Kai, your Eagles did not bad trying to come back, but not quite.
I think probably the story of the week was injuries. Minus Carson Wentz and the Jalen Hurts situation, that they're kind of tailing off into like second, third string in quite a few positions. I think going into this week, it's obviously tonight, against the Giants, Zach Ertz out, Dallas Goedert out, Miles Sanders out, Deshaun Jackson's limited in practice, but I think he's out. Alshon Jeffrey could be back for tonight. Avonte Maddox out, Marcus Epps out, Kayvon Wallace out, Duke Riley out, Jack Driscoll out, Lane Johnson out.
Kai,
Jackson
do you want to see if you can go across and get a game?
I honestly feel like I'm about to get a phone call here.
Aye, I think I could see you at wide receiver.
I mean, like my jersey's in the background here. Like with Zach Ertz in the back of it, I'm pretty sure I could probably take his role pretty well.
I mean, I don't think you have
Doesn't
the
do
same.
much, does he?
Don't have the same physique as him, really.
No,
that's a movie, is it not? The Mark Wahlberg movie, Invincible, because the Eagles at one point in the 80s or something did tryouts for fans to see who could join the team, and that someone got into the team. That's what that whole movie's about.
Well,
so maybe they'll do an Invincible style thing again and do open tryouts.
The problem with that now, obviously, with the current COVID situation, is you then have to sit there for a week and get 5 days of negative test, don't you, before you're allowed in the facility? So
Exactly.
So really,
yeah.
There's not really much else to say. I think as an Eagles fan, I was pretty pleased with the performance this week. I wasn't expecting anything against the Ravens. Like, you go into that kind of hoping that it stays respectable, and to finish it within 3 points of them, and have that play at the end to obviously take it to a very close game. I think you can take positives from it.
Well,
I would imagine that we'll probably put on a better showing tonight.
Exactly, against the New York Giants, who were at home to Washington this gone week there.
Look at that.
See, these are... it's not going to work for the next one, but we'll get there. The Giants won 20 points to 19, and that's because Washington went for a 2-point conversion right at the end, and it was not successful. But Ron Rivera...
We're rivaling the Eagles for a bad one.
Yes, that's... Well, I mean, to call it a bad one's maybe a bit harsh. Is it? I don't know. But Rivera said that the only way to learn to win is to play to win. And I kind of respect that a bit. I like that because, if you take the extra point, you go to overtime, and you might end up having happen to you like what happened to Houston, where they didn't get a chance to win the game. So they tried to win the game there and then, and I can respect that. But all in all, I think these are two bad teams.
Yeah, I've got no issues with Ron Rivera going for that to win the game. I don't think they know that this season is going to be a struggle on and off the field. They're just trying to find their identity, and this game isn't going to define their season. If they win the game, great. If they don't, at least they know kind of where they're at. Almost in a way, it gives them more information about the team, and the fact that they didn't convert the 2-point conversion and win the game kind of shows who's on the team, who can make plays. Excuse me. I don't think it's not the end of the world for Washington to lose that game. The fact that they did have a fumble return just when they were making a drive before they made their final touchdown drive. I think I've got it here. Can't remember the guy's name, but it was a linebacker who was the 200th pick in the draft or something like that for the Giants, managed to return it to the house off a Kyle Allen fumble. But it was just a sloppy game, which fits in well with that division. But as I said, I don't think the Washington football team will be too disheartened about that loss.
No, probably not. They might be more disheartened with the fact that Antonio Gibson isn't doing as he should be, and J.D. McKissick is kind of the leading rusher and leading receiver out that backfield. I think they were hoping that Gibson would take on that role, but it certainly looks like it's a two-headed monster for the moment, and McKissick appears to be a bit more efficient there at the moment. Daniel Jones only threw for 112 yards in that game.
He rushed quite a lot though, did he not?
Yeah, he rushed for 74, which is more than Devontae Freeman, who rushed for 61 yards. But there was less than 250 total yards of offense for the Giants, and I think that sums them up, that they're not that great.
They still managed to win.
Yeah, without Saquon, they are just completely bland. I want to say I really like Darius Slayton, and they're missing Sterling Shepard as well. But yeah, they just, without Saquon, they don't look as near any kind of threat to any team in the NFL.
Well, the good thing is,
even
they at least got...
just when you talk about like rushing for that team who are playing, that I totally forgot the name there, Washington. I feel like they're the only team, and I say only team, I feel like they're one of a small bunch of teams in the league who don't really have a presence on the ground. They don't really have a rushing presence. I know Antonio Gibson's there, but he's not doing what you want him to do. Do you think that will worry them? I know he's a rookie, but do you think the lack of production out of him for a running back will be a worry for them?
I don't think so. I think that they accept they're not a very good team, to be honest. And if you're not a good team, you often don't get to rush the ball a lot because you're going to be behind a lot and you're going to have to throw it. And Antonio Gibson
Yeah, I suppose.
is good at catching the ball, as is McKissick. So I think the reason they've got the two of them with so many touches and playing so often is because they know they're going to have to throw the ball a lot.
I don't think you should be that. I don't think a rookie year is. I think a rookie year is a too small a sample size to know how they're going to be for their careers. I mean, you might have people who have phenomenal rookie rushing years and end up not beginning to continue that productivity, and then vice versa as well. So I think they'll be looking at the second year with better draft picks at the end of this season as well to really come on into their second season. But I think they do miss the fact that they sold, or they traded away, or sorry, released, should I say, Adrian Peterson. He's not lighting up the rushing game for the Detroit Lions, but I think that's the kind of player that the Washington football team are actually missing at the moment. It's just an experienced back who can get you first downs. And yeah, I think they could have done with holding on to him at least for this one season.
I mean, I feel that's a bit harsh on Peyton Barber as that experienced back that could get you first downs. That they definitely are using a lot with the 4 carries whatever he had.
Yeah.
But moving on to the next game where we also had 2 disappointing rushing offenses in this game. It was the Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota obviously without Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, who'd been looking really good in previous games as a backup, then averaged 2.6 yards a carry. And Todd Gurley on the other side, who everyone was like, oh, Todd Gurley's back after last week, averaged 2.4 yards a carry. So it wasn't great, but there was lots of points scored. And Matt Ryan, my question is, was he just missing Julio Jones? Now that Julio's back, he's happy?
Well, I benched Matt Ryan this week. Yeah, I benched him in Dynasty League this week because I thought I'll play Daniel Jones instead. What a silly mistake that was. I think Matt Ryan scored 30 odd points and Daniel Jones only got about 11. But
Mikey, yeah, did you not win anyway?
I won anyway, but that's not
exactly. It doesn't matter. Stop moaning.
I look for individual performances, you know. But yeah, I think you put Julio Jones in any offense and they're going to potentially put up 40 points a game. Genuinely, that's how good in my opinion, there's been loads of talks of it over the years, but when you talk about who the best wide receivers are longevity-wise over maybe the past 5 years, probably the 2 that you would mention would be Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. Julio Jones for me is the best wide receiver in the league in terms of longevity and production. I know maybe not this year, but I just love to watch him. I just think he's absolutely phenomenal, and he benefits Calvin Ridley massively as well because obviously your number 1 corner is going to be on Julio Jones for most of the game.
Quick question to you both. The Falcons are now 1-5. Do you think they will get to 500? Do you think they'll get to 8-8?
We need to see their schedule. This is something.
It wouldn't surprise me if they can keep having weeks like that where they kind of actually found another level of.
I'm just thinking without Dan Quinn, because we know how much that Mikey hated Dan Quinn. So.
I still think they'll struggle. They would need to have a very good run-in from now, obviously, to get to 8-8. But I wouldn't put it past them.
Well, you just quickly look at the schedule to decide that. I'm just going to quickly touch on the Minnesota side of the game when you have a look at the schedule and make a decision. Justin Jefferson had 9 receptions, 166 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. That sounds like an impressive stat line, but a lot of that was late in the game when the game had already been lost. A lot of garbage time production. Don't get me wrong, still played well, but a lot of those stats were boosted by that. And as I say, Mattison fairly disappointing. Cousins with 3 interceptions as well. But I think Atlanta were worth their win, certainly there.
Cousins had an absolute shocker.
Yes, he does not like that.
No. Do you think? Now, obviously, again, it's still very early days. I just quite like asking wee random questions to find out your opinions on this. Do you think the Vikings are putting themselves in a position offensively to transition Justin Jefferson into their wide receiver 1 ahead of Adam Thielen?
Not this season.
No, so that's what I mean. They're putting themselves in a position where he will become that over Adam Thielen.
I think
very
when
quickly.
when you draft a first round wide receiver, it's with the sole intention of them being your lead receiver for coming years. I don't know if we spoke about this in the very first podcast, but last 2 drafts ago, I was desperate for the Packers to draft DK Metcalf because I'd watched him in college. I absolutely loved him, and I feel like we needed it at that time. And then this season, we were crying out for a wide receiver, and I'd been saying it because I watched a lot of LSU games last year, and I wanted Justin Jefferson. I just think that Devontae Adams with Justin Jefferson could end up being in 2 and 3 years the most lethal wide receiver duo in NFL. But of course, the Minnesota Vikings picked him up instead. So I'm very, very high on Justin Jefferson, and I think he will be, as me and Adam spoke about yesterday, one of the best wide receivers in the league in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, because Mikey was trying to trade for him in Dynasty, and I think what I was asking for him was going to be far too much to spend because I'd be looking for several first-round picks in return.
Which
for
is
Jefferson.
understandable.
Yeah.
Considering the talent.
Just while, again, you're just making a decision on my question about the Falcons, if they'll get to 500, Justin Jefferson, the way the Vikings got him, which I found quite interesting, was they traded Stephon Diggs to the Bills for a second-round pick, and then they spent that pick they got from the Bills on Jefferson. So to be fair, I think both teams have done all right out of that trade because Diggs has done well so far in Buffalo, and Jefferson looks like a good one for the future.
As soon as they gave up Diggs, that's what everybody involved around the Vikings were thinking is, who are we going to bring in to partner Adam Thielen? Because Thielen and Diggs were both elite wide receivers, fantasy relevant wide receivers, and that offense can definitely have 2 fantasy relevant wide receivers. And they brought in Justin Jefferson, and it's almost been like a seamless transition from Diggs to Jefferson.
Yep, totally agree. Right, quick 1-word answer. Do the Falcons make 500?
No.
Okay.
They have 3 games before their bye, which is winnable, but then they play very, very tough schedule from week 11 onwards. Saints twice, Tampa Bay twice, Kansas City Chiefs, etc. So no, I don't think they're going to go over 500.
Okay, we'll cut that out for when
that was in 1 word.
They end up 9-7. We'll make sure we've got that. So, to be fair, I don't think they will either, but I think they'll get close. I think they'll be maybe a 6-10 team, something like that. I think they'll definitely be better, or a 7-9, something like that. They'll definitely be better now that Dan Quinn is not there. Talking about teams that
they'll have a favourable matchup in the coming weeks against someone like the Detroit Lions, Adam.
Oh, is that the link we're going for? Right, okay, I like that. Yeah, so talking about those Detroit Lions, they managed to travel to Jacksonville and beat them 34 points to 16. My 2 things I have written down are Jacksonville are bad and Minshew is bad. And I've said this, I think, every week in the podcast. I don't rate Gardner Minshew, and I still don't rate him, having watched him play again.
Never going to come in this podcast, is he?
No, not unless he wants a fight.
He can come on and justify himself to us.
In about a week and a half time, you'll see my attempt at fighting him with a mustache because we'll have Movember going on. So.
Yeah. I don't think Gardner Minshew feels like he needs to justify himself to anybody, given his personality. So, but this, I think all of us said that we thought the Lions would win. I just didn't think they would win as comfortably as they would. When the Detroit Lions play well, they are a very, very good team. Not a playoff team, not a Super Bowl team. I just think they're a very good team. They're fun to watch. I think we spoke about the fact that they burst out into leads and then take the foot off the gas. This, I think they were 17-3 up at halftime, and obviously they didn't take their foot off the gas this week, but that was because they're up against someone like the Jacksonville Jaguars. But yeah, a good performance. As long as you've got Matt Stafford under centre, I think you're always going to have a good chance of winning. I think he's a very underrated quarterback who got drafted to a bad team who have been managed poorly for years. So I was happy to see them win because I just think the Jaguars, in my opinion, they're going to have the second pick in the draft this season.
DeAndre Swift breakout, Kai?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've kind of been, I wouldn't say we've been preempting it for a few weeks, but I think we've kind of been talking about, obviously after that week 1 drop, I think the Lions decided they just didn't like him for a couple of weeks and he was on the naughty step. And then week 3 or week 4, he obviously finally got that catch, got the touchdown.
Yes.
And I think it's kind of, like we said then, I think it's kind of boosted his confidence a wee bit. And then obviously this week, 116 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. I think that's the kind of productivity that the Lions are looking for out of him. I'm not saying he's going to consistently do that every week now, but I think you'll find him if he's found his feet a wee bit more, and he might kind of have more consistent weeks, shall we say.
I was actually surprised that Swift ended up with as many goal line carries as he did. Like I was watching the game and he had quite a few goal line carries, and I thought that was Peterson's sort of role. But I was impressed that that they were giving them those. Looking at the attempts, Peterson actually still had one more attempt than Swift, but Swift obviously was a lot more efficient, and he had some bigger runs there as well. Going back to my previous point in a previous match about the teams in the AFC South who I think are good and the one that I think is not. This one here, those Jags are a team that are not good, and I think I agree with Mikey that they will. I'll be honest, I thought they were going to get the number 1 pick, and then they started off. They did not bad, and then they got a win early on. But I think them and the Jets could be fighting over that number. I think the Giants might sneak out of that battle, but the Jets, the Jags.
Sorry, when you go, Mikey.
Yeah, no, I actually have the Jets with the worst record, and then Jags with the 2nd pick, Washington with the 3rd pick, and then the New York Giants. So, but that still includes Washington and the Giants finishing 2 and 14, but just based on head-to-heads, the Washington football team will have a 3rd pick rather than the Giants. But yeah, what were you carry on, Kai? Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the Giants are always going to struggle when they get rid of someone like Calais Campbell on defence, who's the biggest presence ever, and then they also obviously get rid of someone like Leonard Fournette. Like, if you were to pick out their kind of key player on both sides of the ball, I think a lot of people would probably have said those two. So when the two of them go, and you're kind of left with everything else that's there, I think they were always bound to struggle.
Yeah.
They were never very good before. They've certainly not made any steps to try and improve, put it that way.
I think one thing Matt Patricia will be happy about with the Lions is
he still has a job.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. But I think that the reason that they brought in Adrian Peterson was, yes, he was going to get a lot of usage, but also the fact that he can mentor someone like DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Washington running backs need just now. I think McKissick or Antonio Gibson need Adrian Peterson type player to try and help them through tough situations. And DeAndre Swift, with that drop in week 1 or 2, I think Adrian Peterson would have picked him up straight away and kind of told him what to do after that and how to react from it, and he has reacted from it. So I think that's another reason the Washington football team made a mistake in releasing Adrian Peterson.
I must say, I feel sorry for Kerryon Johnson at Detroit, because I thought he played fairly well last year, and he's just like a non-factor anymore, which is
very just been forgotten about a bit, hasn't he?
Yeah. Talking about running backs who aren't used as much as they maybe should be, is that a bit of a stretch for that link? The Indianapolis Colts, they were at home to the Cincinnati Bengals. 31 points to 27, the Colts won, having been 21 points to 0 down in the second quarter. And I was very worried, as someone who thought the Colts were going to do very well this year, when they went 21-0 down at home to the Bengals. I thought, oh dear, have I just put the curse on the Colts? Because ever since I said they might be my Super Bowl pick, they have not played well. But they came back, and Philip Rivers with a very infrequent rush for him, a rushing touchdown.
Not something you see every week.
No, it certainly isn't something you see every week. I actually have the statistic here from the players who also had rushing touchdowns the same week that Philip Rivers also last scored a rushing touchdown. Include players like Tim Tebow, scored a rushing touchdown that week. Donovan McNabb, who was the ex-Eagles QB. Maurice Jones-Drew for the Jags. And do you know who else is on this list, though? Frank Gore.
I don't know.
Frank Gore scored one back there. That's how
last
long.
week, or was it 10 years ago?
So it just shows you that Gore is eternal, I think. But I say I was impressed with the comeback for the Colts. They still don't use Jonathan Taylor as much as they should use him, because he's 5 yards a rush and they're only giving him 12 rushes. But I mean, I can only beat that drum for so long as a Jonathan Taylor fantasy owner.
I've got a quarterback comparison career stats. So Joe Burrow against Philip Rivers. Passing yards, Joe Burrow 1,500, Philip Rivers 60,000. Pass touchdowns, Joe Burrow 6, Philip Rivers 403. Rush touchdowns, Joe Burrow 2, Philip Rivers 3. And I think Philip Rivers has been playing for maybe 15 years more than that. So
Is there not a last part to that stat as well, Mikey?
Yeah, Joe Burrow, children 0, Philip Rivers, and I think Ryan Fitzpatrick has 7. I think they are.
Does Fitzpatrick not normally have one for each team that he goes to?
I think that's what he does. He celebrates that way, yeah. So yeah, my non-outlandish claim of the careers, I think Joe Burrow will have more rushing touchdowns than Philip Rivers when he finishes
there we go.
his career.
I think he'll have more rushing touchdowns this season.
Mikey's outlandish call of the week. I know you said it wasn't it, but I'm making it yours for today. So.
I've still got mine to say, actually.
Oh, we get to play that drop again.
I've got this one in the bank.
The only other thing I really have to say about that is I thought the Bengals were like actively trying to make sure that Joe Mixon didn't score a touchdown. As a Joe Mixon owner, the first drive they put Giovanni Bernard in. I was like, right, thanks. Second one, Joe Burrow took it himself. I was like, this is just not going to be my day. And then obviously Mixon decided to push himself over the line, but
he got one in the end. He got one in the end.
Oh.
I agree. When I saw Bernard going, I thought, well, Bernard doesn't strike me as the type of goal line back that you maybe want, but it worked anyway. But I say that I thought the Bengals weren't that bad. They just, I think the Colts' actual quality came through.
Shone through.
Yeah, towards the end there. Moving on to the next game. It's the Chicago Bears at the Carolina Panthers. I don't have a link for that one, sorry. We're just going to have to go with it. The Chicago Bears won 23 points to 16. And here is Adam's outlandish claim of the week. I don't think the Bears are actually any good. I know their record suggests they are, but I do not think they are a good team.
I think they've had a very favourable run-in so far this season. Credit to them. I mean, you win ugly. That's what Nick Foles came out after the game and said. He was like, "I'd rather win ugly than lose pretty." I think is what his quote was, and I completely understand that. They haven't been great to watch, but they're churning out performances, which is very Chicago Bears like when they had the two seasons ago. Their D was called the Monsters of the Midwest. They are still a good team defensively. If you've got Khalil Mack, you're going to be a good team regardless. So I think they're just kind of churning out results at the moment, and fair play to them because they're now sitting top of the NFC North.
Two Packers fans trying to say that a team that are above them in division aren't that good.
Right, here is my...
I feel like there's some sort of like, I don't know, bias going on here, maybe?
Here is my evidence, okay? Chicago Bears, points for 128. The New York Giants, points for 101. They've only scored 20 more points than the Giants over the last 5 weeks. That and the Giants are bad.
Kai is currently doing a fake yawning sign to Adam while he speaks, but which is actually quite funny because whenever I try and defend my team on fantasy in the exact same way, Kai is always quick to get me down. So I think we are seeing the true colours of Kai at the moment. But when you look at their schedule, Detroit Lions, they won. Giants, Falcons, Colts, Tampa Bay, and Carolina. I mean, it's a relatively easy running, but we'll see how they are before the bye week in week 11. They've got the Rams in Los Angeles next, New Orleans Saints, Titans, and then a divisional game against Minnesota. So, and then after the bye, they've still got Green Bay to play twice. So it will be interesting to see where they finish this year. I think they'll make the playoffs. I do. I think they'll get the second position in the NFC North. I do think the Packers have too much strength for them, but fair play to them. I mean, if I could have a winning season with a team winning ugly, I'd take it 100%.
Kai, even your Philadelphia Eagles have scored more points than the Bears, and trying
to like surprise me with that.
I know.
I can't even say that, to be honest. I was going to say they're the best team in the world, but
your team has not been playing very well this year. Your team has one win.
Still scored lots of points.
Comparatively to the Bears, maybe, yeah. But yeah, I just don't think they're particularly good. For Carolina, Davis wasn't as dominant as he had been in previous weeks, but I actually think watching back this game, the Panthers kind of threw this game away. No pun intended, but I mean there was an interception quite early on that resulted in a 7 points for the Bears. I think the Panthers could easily win this game.
Yeah, I think it's. I feel like it's like a curse of the commentator type thing when we were hyping them up the past couple of weeks, and I know me specifically, and you guys probably back me up as well, was that we were talking about how good Teddy Bridgewater had been, and he was kind of starting to get to grips with the offense a bit, and then this week he was absolutely mince. I wouldn't say it's a reflection on the Panthers' season. I think it was maybe just a bit of an off day, but like you say, I think they could have very easily won this game as much as they lost it.
Anything to add, Mikey, before we move on?
I just think they'd maybe just ran out of steam after, 3 wins in a row.
Yeah.
And yeah, as much as I'm not buying into the Bears at the moment, they do have a very good D, so you can't take that away from them. But I think Bears this week up away to the Rams against the likes of Aaron Donald and everything like that, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that game turns out, because you do have a kind of sluggish offense at the moment against, let's say, Aaron Donald and co. So we'll obviously get on to the Rams, but they will obviously want to bounce back next week against the Bears. So that'll be a game I'll definitely be keeping my eye on.
Yep, I totally agree. Let's move on to the next game, which was an AFC East matchup. The New York Jets travelled to the Miami Dolphins, and there are talking points. There are talking points in this game, but we'll get to that major talking point after. I just have a couple of things to say. Miami won 24 points to 0. We saw Tua come out for a few snaps at the end of the game. Just a quick update on Jordan Howard's stats. I know we all like them. He was actually a healthy scratch for this game. So he wasn't even suited up for the game. So they've obviously decided that his rushing efficiency of like 0.7 yards a carry wasn't something they wanted to continue with. The New York Jets. Now, a lot of people say that the Jets are a bad football team, and yes, that's true. A lot of people blame Sam Darnold for that, and I would suggest that that's not the case. I think it's Adam Gase. I think we've talked about this previously. But the Jets with Darnold have obviously got a losing record. But since Darnold has been drafted, the Jets, when Darnold hasn't played, since he's been drafted but he hasn't played, the Jets are 0-8.
Yep.
They've never won a game since Darnold was drafted if Darnold wasn't playing. So this team are bad, and they're going to get the number 1 pick. And me and Kai were talking about this. If they get the number 1 pick, and I'd be interested to see your opinion on it, Mikey. If the Jets do get the number 1 pick, what do they do? Do they trade it away and get lots in return because people will want Trevor, or do they draft Trevor and then trade Darnold away?
I would say they take in Trevor Lawrence. There's nothing against Sam Darnold because I've spoken about him in the past. I think he is a very good quarterback, and I think we spoke about maybe putting him in like the Colts offense or something like that. Who knows if the Jets get the number 1 pick, could we see Sam Darnold in somewhere like Dallas because of the whole Dak situation? Would I be opposed to that? Absolutely not. I think he could maybe thrive in that offense, but this is nothing against Sam Darnold, but the upper tier and the owners and the general management of the Jets will be looking at this as a completely wipe the slate clean, start again. And that's nothing on Sam Darnold. He's put up good numbers, but it's time for a whole new change in New York on the Jets side of the football. And I genuinely think Trevor Lawrence could be the one to do that. There's a lot of hype around them, so there'll be a lot of pressure. And when you're a losing team like the Jets, especially if they go 1-15, 0-16 this season, there'll be even more pressure on Trevor Lawrence. But that comes with the territory, I guess. So I would love to see Trevor Lawrence in the Jets offense.
How much do you think, Kai, the Jets would get for Darnold if they did trade him?
I think they would probably struggle in getting as much as he's probably really worth.
Would they get more trading them now, maybe?
Yeah, I would say so. I think they would get more now than letting it go to the end of the season and then potentially being 0-16, and teams will look at it and go, do we really want a quarterback out of an 0-16 team? I'm not saying they get much of a better quarterback out of a team that are currently 0-6, but no, I wouldn't say that's a Sam Darnold problem. I kind of had, after our discussion the other day, I kind of had a wee look, and we were talking about whether the Jets would be better to keep Darnold, trade up the pick for Trevor Lawrence, and try and build their offensive line. But actually, on further investigation, their offensive line for this year is brand new. None of them have ever played for the Jets before.
That could be why they're struggling then, with
Yeah,
no preseason.
they have. But I think I kind of feel a wee bit sorry for Sam Darnold and the Jets in the sense that this is a brand new offense. Aside from Sam Darnold, I mean, they brought in Mikey Becton, who's obviously a rookie, but the rest of the guys, you've got a fifth-year guard, an eighth-year guard, a fifth-year centre. Like they've got, it's experienced guys in terms of the league. None of them have ever played together on the same offensive line. They just wiped the slate clean and brought a new offensive line in for this year. So I think potentially, I think they would be better off bringing in Trevor Lawrence, trying to trade away Sam Darnold, and then have like a second year offensive line who have all kind of at least played together for a while, and then have Trevor Lawrence in behind it and kind of see if they can build on that.
Yep, here's my theory then to go alongside that. If you think they should get rid of Darnold, get rid of him now. Try and maybe get a first and a second, or a first and a fourth, or something like that. You know, I don't think they'll get like 2 firsts for him, but I think he's definitely worth a first. He's definitely, I'd say, you know, a starting level quarterback for a decent team. Trade him away, play with Flacco, who has not been great. So you'll guarantee losing the games, and then you'll get that first overall pick.
Yep. I mean, on the subject of Joe Flacco, he's 2-11 in his last 13 starts at quarterback.
That's why he's not starting for the football team. On the other side of the ball, they were very good. I enjoyed Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick playing really well. You know, probably some of the best football he's played for a while. And then Miami decided he's not going to play anymore, and they're going to give the ball to Tua. And Fitzpatrick actually said he was actually quite upset when he heard the news.
Yeah, I've got his quote here. It said, "My heart all day. It broke my heart yesterday. It's a tough thing for me to hear, to now have to deal with, but I'm going to do my best with it." It is heartbreaking. He it's not like he was playing bad. I think he's top 7 in quarterback rating this season with a 3-3 Dolphins. I mean, the guy is playing well beyond his years at the moment, and it's heartbreaking for them to pull the plug so quickly. Everyone knew that Tua was the future of the franchise, but yeah, it's horrible to hear that they've just kind of given up on him so quickly and moved on.
I think Fitzpatrick could accept it if he was playing badly, and they'd give it to Tua. But like, he's been playing really well. Like, I'd say half the teams in the league would happily have Fitzpatrick the way he's playing above the quarterback they currently have. You know, he's been playing really well.
I think you saw at the end of the game, obviously, when Tua came in, like, Fitzpatrick was so happy for him. He was so hyped up at the side. And I think he kind of thought that was give him some game time. He was so happy because he was playing well. The Dolphins are playing well. They've obviously got this very, very, very exciting rookie to come in. And it kind of annoyed me. I was sitting there like annoyed when I saw the decision, because I would really have liked to have just seen Fitzpatrick see the season out, or at least be given the chance while he's playing well to kind of guide the offense for the season. And then you bring Tua in next season. Like we said last week, there's no rush to bring him in. And if he comes in and they start to have a kind of downturn in form, does it then start to look bad on Tua because Fitzpatrick had played so well and the Dolphins were playing well? It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm not saying Tua's not going to play well, because I think he's obviously got the quality, but it's a bit of a, what's the word for it? Like a precarious situation where they could end up kind of damaging his reputation a wee bit.
Don't get me wrong, it makes sense for the change to happen just now because they've got their bye week coming up, so they've got a fortnight of practice with Tua under there. You know, it's best to do it over the bye week to give you more time to prepare for your first game. So I think the timing in that sense is good, but I think at this point Miami might have thought they'd have been doing worse and it would have made sense for Tua to come in. But now maybe it doesn't make a huge amount of sense. But
no, I don't think it makes sense at all, to be honest.
I think when you're I wouldn't even say when you're a top 10 pick, when you're a first round pick as a quarterback, you know that the keys are going to be handed to you for the offense in the immediate future. I think one of the only kind of reasons against that would be Jordan Love with the Packers, because that was a bit of a shocker. But Justin Herbert, you knew at some point in this season he was going to come in. He's came in earlier. Obviously, Joe Burrow started straight away because they needed him. You knew that Tua was going to come in at some point when he was the 5th pick. But I don't know if this is part. He's very well liked even before he made it to the NFL. He was a very popular figure in college football. He was a national champ in 2017 as well. But and I think also his jersey is one of the top 10 high selling jerseys in the UK. So I think he's got a big fan base worldwide. For obviously the fact he's from Hawaii as well. But yeah, I really do feel for Ryan Fitzpatrick. I personally think Fitzpatrick will have started his last game as an NFL quarterback.
I think that's what he said as well. I think he said that was one of the things.
That's not an outlandish.
Oh, is that not your outlandish pick? No, all right, sorry.
Not yet. We're getting to that.
I think that's what he said as well, as part of that, like off the back of that quote and kind of what he said in his statement and stuff, was that all the things that run through your head when you hear that kind of decision, especially because he's been in the league for so many years. Like, is that the last time he gets an NFL start? Is it the start of the end in terms of his career with the Dolphins? Like, there's probably a lot of things he'll be thinking about. But if I was him, I probably would kind of be worried, because if Tua comes in and does well, then Dolphins aren't turning back.
If I were Fitzpatrick, what I would do is I'd say I've played for Tampa Bay in Florida. I've played for Miami in Florida. There's another team in Florida that are really bad with a really bad quarterback. So maybe I should go to Jacksonville and take that job and actually do something there. And I wouldn't even have to move house because I'd still be in Florida.
Exactly.
That's my hypothesis there. I saw an interview with Fitzpatrick who actually said something. I know we've touched on this for quite a long time, but it's quite a big story in the week. Fitzpatrick has said that it's a really weird thing because he was sat in a Zoom call with the person who is it's an equivalent of fire him, but you're still working for that person who's just fired you. And then he was in a socially distanced room with the person who's taken his job. You know, because they're still in the quarterback room doing whatever they're doing. You know, it's really, and sports one of those unique things, especially when you've been dropped but you're still in the squad, that you've lost your job but you're still there.
Because you're still floating about all the time. You're still very much actively involved, but you know fine well that there's another guy there who's got your job, and there's not really much you can do to get it back right now.
Yeah. I feel sorry for him, but I feel as if we've talked about him far too much now. Though your beard is majestic, we'll have to move on. And we'll move on to one of the other Florida teams.
Oh, look at that. Another great transition.
Do we have to talk about this game, though? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home to the Green Bay Packers, 38 points to 10. The Packers went up 10-0. Poor game for the Packers. Let's move on. Right, so...
I think, as you two have said, I think there is more to be said about the Bucs than there is the Packers.
Yeah, Mikey, I'm sad, so you can talk about them.
I honestly don't have much to say about the Packers side of the ball. I know Aaron Rodgers threw his first picks of the season. I think it was only his 3rd ever career pick six as well, which really shocked me because I know it's common for quarterbacks to throw interceptions, and pick sixes as well. But the one thing that I heard the commentators say, which shocked me, was obviously the Bucs Bears game on Thursday Night Football the week before. The Bucs had 11 penalties for 109 yards, and that's what I said in the podcast. I felt that that's what helped the Bears win that game. This week, the Bucs had no penalties in this game. It's the first time the Bucs have done that since 1983, and those 2 occasions were the only 2 times they've been able to do it in franchise history, which just blew my mind.
Jesus.
So they went from giving away 109 yards and 11 penalties to no penalties for only the 2nd time in their history.
Tom Brady's influence starting to be on show, is it?
Yeah, as we said, it doesn't matter. I know the Bucs are a very good team, and I think their D is top 3, top 5. But when you've got a quarterback on any team that is that kind of quarterback, like a Big Ben or a Tom Brady or a Aaron Rodgers, you're going to win games and you're going to play well. That's not much to say on the Packers side. They ran out of steam. It was a poor showing in a game. Probably, I don't think the bye week helped them, but yeah, it's just one of those where you've just got to move on. Big game against Houston Texans next week, so we'll see what happens.
I think when you're talking about the Bucs D and how good they are, obviously Sean, who's in our league and seems to score quite well every week, maybe aside from this week. Sorry, Sean.
The one
dropped
Mikey plays
the
against
Bucks D.
Mikey.
He obviously dropped the Bucks D this week, but the Bucks are the Bucks D, sorry, are the first team since the Vikings in 2006 to allow less than 100 rushing yards in 12 consecutive games. So the last 6 of last season and the first 6 of this season, they've not allowed any more than 100 rushing yards.
Can I also just point out that Bucks D, especially the D line, which I think is amazing, still did that job today without Vita Vea, who's been quite an important part because he's now on IR with a broken leg. And I think this Bucks defense was hugely underrated going into the season. Don't get me wrong, I didn't rate it going into the season. I'm not going to claim I was an expert, but I don't think anyone thought, oh, you know what's going to be really good about Tampa Bay? Their defense.
You know, especially when you've got someone like Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski both coming in at the start of the season. Like, the defense probably just did their business without really wanting noticed.
Exactly. I mean, Gronk turned up again. He's starting to kind of grow into this offense. I'm slightly worried that we're going to end up with the Brady-Gronk partnership that we had in New England because 5 receptions, 78 yards, 1 touchdown. And Gronk, I find it amazing watching him because it never looks like he's running particularly fast, yet people fall over when he goes near them, like when he runs into them. And I thought, he doesn't look like he's got that much momentum, but...
Yeah,
he's just so big.
Yeah, he's just another freak of nature. There's a handful of them playing in the NFL just now. I would say probably Aaron Donald, Derrick Henry. Gronk is definitely one of them. His performance haven't really been great lately, but you've seen it. He's probably the best tight end of all time, maybe up there with Tony Gonzalez, maybe. But just unbelievable. And anybody who's not a fan of the Bucks should be afraid of the Brady Gronk partnership because it might start to get more and more potent as the season goes on.
So remember my outlandish pick, right? The first episode of this podcast where I said that the Bucks might win this division.
Well, this is one thing that I've got written down because I love narratives. I love seeing cool stories that happen. Basically, like the Alex Smith storyline. The fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup in September, and the Tampa Bay Rays are in the World Series, the baseball World Series at the moment. Having all 3 Tampa, because they don't have a basketball team, having all 3 Tampa Bay teams winning their World Championships, it would be very cool to see. And for Tom Brady being the last team out of those Tampa Bay outfits to do that, I would love to see it if the Packers don't get to the Super Bowl. It would be very cool to see.
I must say it would be.
Make a claim just now that's not really that outlandish. It won't happen.
Oh, there you go. There's Kai's outlandish pick. There we go. It won't happen.
There's Kai has basically, on this podcast alone, totally disregarded Bill Belichick and totally disregarded Tom Brady. I don't think anybody's did that before.
Well, I mean, I'm
both like massively overrated, don't they not?
I'm sure all those Super Bowl rings might say differently.
The silence there says all.
Anyway, we talked about that game too much because the Packers weren't very good. So we'll move on to the next game quickly, as quick as I can. A team that hadn't played particularly well previously were the San Francisco 49ers, but this time they were at home to the LA Rams and they won the game 24 points to 16. There are passing game struggles for the LA Rams, I've said here, but all in all, I think this NFC West is very strong. And I think, again, at the start of this series of podcasts at the start of the season, I said that I thought the NFC West might all be above 500. And at the moment, they're all 500 or above, so I'm not that far off.
I think you could be right. I think you could be right. I was just having watched the game and kind of, like you say, the Rams kind of struggled a wee bit. Me and Mikey had a conversation at the start of the season where we were just saying how Mikey was like all in on the Rams. I think you said, I'm not saying you were, but like that was your comment at the start of the season, and I kind of tended to agree because having watched Hard Knocks and with the kind of personnel we had, I thought they would have had a really good season. And I'm kind of starting to think we might have been expecting a bit too much of them.
Can I also point out that you're talking about a 4-2 team as if they're really bad, you know?
Yeah, I'm not saying like they're a bad team. They just, I think there was maybe, me especially, I think I kind of hyped them a wee bit too much at the start of the season. Probably because I'd seen more of them than I'd seen anyone else, having watched Hard Knocks, but they've not got the most experienced run game at the moment. Obviously, Cam Akers coming in. They've got Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown and stuff. Like, it's not a very established run game, but I think over time, throughout this season, they've obviously the first 6 weeks they've shown that they all have the ability. I think the Rams could be a team that maybe grow over the next couple of seasons, could grow into another good. I keep saying good team as if they're not, like they are a very good team, but I feel like to win this division you need to be exceptional when you've got someone like the Seahawks in it.
Yep, I agree. The running game for the Rams, I can't quite remember where I saw this now, so I apologise for not quoting my references. But apparently McVay said that they like Brown as pass protector. So when they're passing, they're going to put Brown in to protect the pass. Henderson as a runner, they're enjoying him as the hot hand at the moment. So that leaves Cam Akers really with not much to do. Unless Henderson starts to struggle, I don't think Akers has got a huge role in this team.
Probably not so much this season. You've kind of seen it. Obviously, he's been injured kind of on and off a couple of weeks, but I think he'll probably play more of a bit part role. They'll kind of chuck him in where they need him, but he's not really going to have a significant starting role at any point. But yeah, I think the Rams they'll have a good record this season. They'll be a good team, and they probably will make the playoffs. I think if they kind of keep their play going the way it is, but nobody's going to win that division but the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's weird because I said I'm all in on the Rams this season, but in saying that, I think the NFC runs through Seattle. It's weird that I didn't expect the NFC to run through the Rams. I think that's why I'm all in on them. It's not when I say I'm all in on them, it's not like I'm going to say they're going to win the Super Bowl. I just think that they look like a very good team this year. And 4-2, I think they are just now. And
yep, 4-2.
Two matchups before their bye are against at home to the Bears and then away to Miami. So very well could be 6-2. You don't know. But then again, Chicago playing well and Tua could light it up. They could be 500, so on 4-4. So I just think that they're a very well coached team, even without, as we said, like an out and out number one running back. But this division, again, probably one of the toughest divisions in football. I would not be surprised at all if all four teams were over 500 at the end of the season.
Talking about out and out number one running backs, the San Francisco 49ers lost theirs. Raheem Mostert with another injury. And it was expected that McKinnon would come in, but it looks like they don't like McKinnon in first and second down roles. They give him third down role. And Jermichael Hasty, I think that's the boy that came in. Yeah? I can't quite remember what his name is.
His name, I'm glad you said it.
I'm sure it's Jermichael Hasty or something like that. He came in, which is going to be interesting for the future because I don't think Coleman's back either. And I think is Jeff Wilson got an injury, or I don't quite know why he wasn't in because normally he's the next one up in that backfield. But the passing game again went through Kittle, 7 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown, and Garoppolo didn't throw any interceptions. I think after that time off to recover properly from the injury, I think they talked about the reason he got dragged off the last time that he got taken off at half time. We were talking about that, and it's since come out that he hadn't fully recovered from the injury that he had. He wasn't quite able to step into his throws. At least that's the excuse they were given. Again, we talked about that earlier. Kai was not liking people who take folk off and then blame injuries.
See, if you're not fit to play a game, just don't play. Don't play like half ready or like.
It's not how it works in the NFL though. Like they will play with they'll try and play with a broken neck. That's the problem with a lot of NFL players. They'll try and play with concussions and stuff like that. Which
if you're a head coach, just like don't put them in. If he's not fit, like just put someone else in. At the end of the day, like the buck stops at them. So if you don't think someone's fit and they're not 100%, why would you risk a team playing so badly just to get them snaps? Especially someone like Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not if he's short of a couple of snaps. Like he doesn't need the experience.
Yeah, very true. But I was impressed with the 49ers. I think all these teams are going to be at least 500. It's going to be a really competitive division. Could we have, for the first time ever, because obviously they expanded playoffs to 7 teams, 4 teams for the same for the same division get into the playoffs?
In the playoffs.
Is that allowed?
Well, obviously it used to be 6, so you had the 4 winners plus 2 wild cards, but you've got 3 wild cards now, so I don't know if there's a rule. It
would take a very weird circumstance for that to happen, I think. But whoever doesn't make the playoffs in this division, whether it's 2 teams that don't make it or just 1 team or whatever, will be very hard done by because it's a very, very tough division. But just with the 49ers and the Eagles, both of them with fully fit rosters, this NFC would be a lot different. I genuinely think that, because they are two teams that they're both playoff teams, 100%. When they're both fully fit, they could go deep in it. Well, I mean, 49ers are a playoff team, a Super Bowl team last season. Eagles have won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, so it's a shame that they're both struggling so much with injury at the moment. But lucky for Packers fans around the world at the moment, and other NFC teams.
Yeah, I just backing on from your point there, Mikey. If they are all like 8-8 or even higher than that, I feel sorry for whoever doesn't get in the playoffs, because one of the teams in the NFC East is probably going to be well below 500 and get in because they've won that division. And
yeah, exactly, which is horrible to see. A team with a winning record not making the playoffs, and potentially a team with a losing record making the playoffs. But that's the cruel world of sports.
Exactly. We'll move on from the cruel world of the NFC East to the AFC East, who the Kansas City Chiefs, they travelled to the AFC East's Buffalo Bills, and Kansas City won 26 points to 17. Josh Allen struggled again for the second game in a row after having a good first 4 games, I think, of the season. He started off I think one of us in this group may have quoted possible MVP for Josh Allen at some point. I think it might have been you, Mikey.
No, I mean, I said MVP, and I also said that I thought the Bills would get to the Super Bowl.
Oh, was it Kai that said it? Sorry, Mikey, I'm quoting you. They're quoting the wrong person. But
if it goes well at the end of the season, I'll take the credit for it. It was definitely Mikey.
I need to go back and listen. But yeah, he struggled the last 2 games. But on the Kansas City side of the ball, the main talking point for the game was Clyde Edwards-Helaire with his best rushing performance to date, with many yards. I'm just getting the stats up just now. I think it was 161 on 26 attempts. Now, I know the weather was really bad. It was very wet, so they weren't wanting to pass the ball a lot. But 161 yards rushing, still no touchdown, because it keeps getting stolen off him. He had one that got brought back. But what happens in that backfield? Now they've got Lev Bell.
I don't know, because they've obviously got...
I don't know, yeah.
they've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They've got Darrell Williams. It's Darrell Williams, isn't it?
Yep.
Damien Williams has opted out. So it's Darrell Williams, Le'Veon Bell, Darwin Thompson,
Tyreek Hill, who's a big rushing threat as well. He scored a touchdown, 2 weeks ago.
So, are they going to become a run-heavy offense? And then, what implications does that have for someone like Tyreek Hill, or, for example, Sammy Watkins, etc.? I just don't know how. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Obviously, Bell's quite a prolific pass catching running back. So does it change the kind of picture in terms of Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball as much? I don't know. I really don't know.
The general consensus, from what I've heard from other fantasy experts and league experts, of which I wouldn't suggest we are at the moment, but you never know how we become experts.
Put ourselves down.
Yeah, is that Lev Bell will kind of take over the Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson role, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire will keep the first and second down role.
Yeah.
I think the Le'Veon Bell's even came out and said that he's planning to reinvent himself. I think he knows he's not going to be the running back he was in Pittsburgh with the Chiefs. So, listen, I think he just wants a ring. I think I don't know if there's any basketball fans listening as well, but he's basically doing what Kevin Durant did when he joined the Golden State Warriors, an elite player in his prime, joining a team where he's guaranteed to win a ring, basically, in the next couple of years. So I think he knows that he's coming towards the end of his career, and he just needs that ring to kind of cement his legacy. I don't know right now if he would. I don't think he'd become a Hall of Famer right now. I don't even know if he'd become a Hall of Famer if he won a Super Bowl. But I think he knows he's getting towards the end of his career, and this is a small window for him to win a ring.
I have a suggestion for how they might use him. I don't think they are going to use him this way, but I thought this was quite interesting. Can you imagine them lining him up as a receiver? Whether it be a slot receiver, because he's really good at catching. So something like a slot receiver, you've got Watkins and Hardman bombing it up the pitch, and him and Kelsey, catching the dump off sort of thing.
Yeah, well, in my Madden season at the moment, I've got Le'Veon Bell as my second running back, and he he lines up in the slot quite a lot. Not through any choice of mine. That's obviously just the way the playbook works. But he lines up in the slot a lot as a wide receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if you seen him and Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the field at the same time. But Le'Veon Bell in the slot, maybe trying to do some pass catching.
Only reason I asked this is because I really could do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire not losing touches, because my running back room is getting quite thin at the moment.
Fantasy bias, that is, yeah.
Certainly is. Do we have anything to add in the game?
It'd be interesting to see, like, kind of what implication that has on Tyreek Hill then, is because obviously Tyreek Hill has not been the Tyreek Hill of the past this season so far. I'm not saying he's not been good, but he's kind of struggled a wee bit more, I find. So I don't know whether, like, absolutely cramming up that backfield and maybe taking away his kind of shorter receptions, if you do put Le'Veon Bell in the slot and have him catching passes, I don't know whether that then takes more away from someone like Tyreek Hill, but I don't think the Chiefs will be worried about having that as a problem.
No, no.
I don't think Andy Reid will be losing sleep over the fact he might struggle to fit someone like Le'Veon Bell in. He's not exactly short of options.
No, I think it's fairly interesting, because this would definitely be probably the best backfield that Kansas City have had for quite a while. And obviously we know them as a fairly pass-first offense, but is that maybe because their backfield's not been great? They had 46 total rushing attempts. I know some of them would have been scrambles for Mahomes, but 46 rushing attempts compared to 26 pass attempts this week. Again, the weather will have something to do with it, but I think especially if they can be leading in games, then I think Bell and Clyde Edwards-Helaire will have value for both of them. I am going to move on to the last game of the week, which has quite a few interesting talking points in it. It was the Arizona Cardinals at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas playing their first full game since Dak went out with that season-ending injury. And Arizona absolutely demolished. That's the word I've been using for a few of the games so far, but demolished Dallas 38 points to 10. Zeke fumbles the ball twice. Dalton throws 2 interceptions, but I don't think Dalton actually played that bad. But certainly Zeke with 12 rushing attempts, and Tony Pollard came in with 10. So do you think they were a bit unhappy with Zeke after those 2 fumbles? I know that's an obvious question, but Zeke, not normally one who isn't the kind of workhorse back, split carries with Pollard there. But Elliott did get 8 receptions in the game, obviously with them being so far down. I just think a poor game for those Dallas Cowboys fans. And one of my favourite things at the moment is the meme that keeps appearing on the internet, which are you sure you're still them boys? And each week that someone else wins, the quarterback appears on it, and it's just gradually building and building up. I'm very much enjoying it.
One thing I noticed as well was that I seen something on social media that the Cowboys players are saying that the coaches, which is a Super Bowl winning coach in Mike McCarthy with the Packers, apparently the coaching staff are quote unquote totally unprepared and they can't adjust in games and they just aren't good at their jobs.
I heard that as well.
This is a shocker, because I really thought Mike McCarthy was a perfect fit for the Cowboys. I think everything he done in Green Bay, I've got no bad feelings towards Mike McCarthy whatsoever. I think it's maybe overstayed his welcome just a little bit, and his relationship with Aaron Rodgers wasn't what it used to be towards the end. But yeah, just shocked that the Cowboys are struggling so much, and the Dak injury just piles on top of things. But I think Kai and myself were talking the other night about the Amari Cooper touchdown drive, which must be the most boring touchdown drive in NFL history. It just was awful.
Here's a shout for Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick could very easily go here if Dalton's not playing well. That would be fun.
That could be interesting.
Yeah, with those
him
receivers.
Or Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I think if they took Sam Darnold, it would be the most ginger quarterback or whatever. I think. Sorry, on you go, Mikey. On you go.
No, on you go. Sorry.
I forgot what I was going to say. That's why I was asking you to go.
This was more on the Cardinal side of the ball. One stat that I've seen that I absolutely loved is Kyler Murray is 7-0 at the AT&T Stadium, but this is only his first NFL start here. So basically, he's from Texas. He played at Allen High School where he was 5-0. Then obviously he was at the Oklahoma Sooners in college and was 1-0 there, and then won his Cardinals debut at AT&T Stadium. And people on social media, I just love it. Somebody posted or re-edited the Wikipedia page for AT&T Stadium, and it says, location in Texas, former name Cowboy Stadium, address 1 AT&T Way, and owner, instead of Jerry Jones, someone has edited it to Kyler Murray. And the operator is the Arizona Cardinals defense. Just things like that. I absolutely love to see it. It's hilarious.
I'd quite like if they changed location to Kyler Murray's back pocket.
Possibly, yeah. He was.
There you go. There's one for you, Mikey.
Yeah. He dominant.
I think as well. Just I've remembered what I was going to say earlier. I was obviously I'd put a little bit of money on a couple of touchdowns on Sunday night. So I was waiting on Ezekiel Elliott to get a touchdown for some sort of return, and I was kind of hoping, considering he usually gets all the goal line work, that he would get at least one. So obviously on that Amari Cooper touchdown drive, the ball, I think it was on like the 4 or 5 yard line, and I was thinking, come on, just give Elliott the ball, just let him run with it.
Feed
and then obviously they throw the ball to Amari Cooper. Yeah, not a good night for the Cowboys in general. They were very poor on defense as well.
I think they just have a bad defense. Full stop. Doesn't matter who they're playing.
It's just not very good at all. I think I meant to check this before we started, but I think they have one of the worst points against in the league, which, considering their record, isn't a surprise, to be honest. But they seem to just manage to outscore teams rather than shut them off.
Yes, the Cowboys so far in their 6 games have had 218 points scored against them.
Yeah.
The next highest team is the Vikings with 192. And then the Browns,
not
Jets,
good on D.
Falcons. I mean, these are all bad teams that have conceded a lot of points, obviously, because that's the way the league works. Andy Dalton had 34 completions from 54 attempts, continuing on from Dak, who was having hundreds of attempts and he was playing as well. On the other side of the ball, Kyler Murray, though, 9 completed passes. That was it.
What?
9 completions. Now, fair enough, one of them was a big 80-yard touchdown run for Christian Kirk, but 9 completed passes.
For 188 yards.
188
yards. Which
yards.
is good because we've spoken about this in the past. I think on one of the predictions I picked the Cardinals when I shouldn't have, for the sole purpose of I've got Kyler Murray and Kenyon Drake in my fantasy team. And out of nowhere, Kyler Murray has now become the number 1 fantasy quarterback in the NFL, which has shocked me. He's just quietly putting up fantastic numbers. But Kenyon Drake, who's been very poor, not just in terms of fantasy, just this season, 164 yards this week on 20 attempts. It's good to see, because I said in last week's podcast that I was worried that him and Edmonds would share the backfield. But it's good to see him come back and put in a big performance as well. I think he had a quote, I don't have the exact quote with me, but he said something that his mum gave him into trouble for not rushing as well as he usually does. So I think that's why he put in the big performance at the weekend against the Cowboys.
And my mum
You've
tells
obviously
me
got
off
to
on
look
that.
You've obviously got to look at the. Obviously, it was a good day for Kenyon Drake, but 64 of those 164 yards came in that like garbage time touchdown rush, when it honestly looked as if the Cowboys had just given up. None of them could be bothered chasing him. None of them could be bothered trying to tackle him. They just looked as if they just stepped back.
There's a picture that Andy Holloway for the Fantasy Footballers had put up on Twitter, and it was just a picture of Drake, and he was the only one in shot. It was taken from behind him and running and saying, "Oh, good to see that he found that channel, or whatever, that running lane."
It's honestly like wider than the bloody Channel Tunnel.
And also, I think it was Buda Baker and Patrick Peterson were running along the sidelines. They were the first people to get to Kenyon Drake. Usually, you see like a Cowboys player kind of running in behind, but nah, they'd given up as soon as he'd kind of broke the plane and ran through. And the people that weren't even on the pitch were the first people to welcome him to celebrate the touchdown.
To be fair, the way that the Cowboys defense play, it's almost as if they give up before they even get on the park before the kickoff. I think that offensive line has struggled as well after the loss of a few players as well, and I think basically they're just going to have to keep throwing it as they are and hope that something will eventually stick. But they're certainly struggling. The Eagles have surely got to win that division. Looking at the other three teams, but
I think, considering there's now no Dak Prescott in Dallas, Washington are ridiculously bad. I think if the Eagles can start getting people back from injury, I think Dallas Goedert's due back in week 8, so at least we've got one of the two tight ends. If we start to get more receivers back, Miles Sanders maybe comes back. I think I would like to hope we could win that division. But I still think that potentially we might win the division with a losing record.
Yeah, I think we said last week or the week before that if the three of us played in the NFC East, that we as a team might win that division. So I don't think it's going to be hard.
You could be right.
Yeah. Do we have anything else to add, or can we move on to our predictions?
I have nothing more to say.
Good stuff. Now I need to remember where I put that whistle. There we go. I picked the right one. That's our 2-minute warning, which means we're on to our projections. And I hand over the hosting duties of the show to Mikey, who tells us all about the predictions from this week. And while he gets ready, I get the schedule up from last week and work our way through the games. And he tells us how everyone's done this week and how we've also done for the season in total. So, Mikey,
can I just ask? So, do you two check the predictions to see who won beforehand, or is this all brand new information to you?
This is new to me.
Yeah, it's new to me as well.
Right, I wasn't sure. Kai seems like the kind of guy that checks to make sure to see if he's won for the week or something.
I'm not a saddle like you, Mike.
Well, can I just point out that Kai is a little saddle because behind the curtains, okay, Kai has his notes for the show printed on paper that has our PHFL logo on the paper. So you can't claim not to be a little saddle.
This is what happens when you don't work for 2.5 weeks and you're bored.
Whereas you had me at the start of the podcast doing like scribbling notes on a piece of paper.
I mean, I'm not quite as unorganised at that, but I did only get like 3 hours sleep last night because I was still up writing my notes. So we'll see.
That's dedication. That deserves at least another 20 followers, I think.
Fingers crossed, we'll see. So let's go on to the predictions. We had the Patriots at home to the Broncos. I assume we were all wrong.
We had a wrong clean sweep. We all said the Patriots, yep.
Yep. The Titans at home to the Texans.
Adam, for some reason you picked the Texans. I'm not really sure why.
I mean, I wasn't.
This is Adam that's sitting in a Texans t-shirt at the moment.
I mean, see, to be fair, with like a minute to go, I thought I was right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's not. It could have went either way at the end.
With 4 seconds to go, you were nearly right, Adam.
Yeah, that's very true. So I was wrong there, unfortunately. The Steelers at home to the Browns.
Kai said the Browns, actually. This is the one that I was on the fence for as well. But Adam and myself picked the Steelers. Good. Could have went either way. The scoreline does not suggest what we were all predicting before the week happened. I really did think the Browns were going to win that game until I changed my mind last minute.
I don't rate Baker Mayfield, so I didn't think the Browns were going to win. The Eagles at home to the Ravens. The Ravens won that game.
Clean sweep for the Ravens for us all, yeah.
Can you believe Kai didn't even pick his Eagles for that game?
Shocking.
Learn the lesson for last week. It doesn't matter what I do, you'll slag me for it.
The Giants at home to the football team. I didn't say it wrong this time. I normally do. The Giants won that game.
You picked the Washington football team, Adam. Myself and Kai picked the Giants.
I had faith in Ron Rivera.
Yeah, well, 2-point conversion at the end. Again, could have went either way. They were all close games this week.
Yeah. One that wasn't close, however, just to contradict what you just said, the Falcons beat the Vikings.
And then to contradict what we've just said again, we all had the Vikings.
Another not close game. I think that was a poor call for you saying there were close games this week, Mikey. The Lions beat the Jags.
We all had the Lions, yeah.
Good. Then the Colts beat the Bengals.
Close game, but we all had the Colts.
I was very worried at the start of that game that our predictions were going to be.
At 21-0 up, I thought we were all wrong.
The Bears beat the Panthers.
Myself and Kai had the Bears. Adam, you had the Panthers. Again, understandable. Before the game, could have went either way before the ball was kicked.
The Jets lost to the Dolphins. Surely we all picked Dolphins.
We all had
close game, that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's picked pick the Jets? Me and Adam, we picked the Jets against.
We
You
picked
picked
them
the Jets
to beat the Broncos
against
yeah.
the Broncos on
I
Thursday
will
Night
not make
Football.
that mistake again.
To be fair,
Although, can I just make a side note that although I said that I think that the Jets will finish 0-16, if they fire Adam Gase, they'll win the first game after the Adam Gase era is over. So that might change my prediction.
I think the
I
Jets
always feel
will
like
win
you-
every game after they sack Adam Gase.
Super Bowl bound.
The Buccaneers beat the Packers quickly.
We had Packers clean sweep. Moving on.
Right, moving on. Good. The 49ers beat the Rams.
Adam, you got this one right. You had the 49ers. Me and Kai had the Rams.
Woohoo. The Bills lost to the Chiefs.
Yep, we had a clean sweep for the Chiefs.
And the Cardinals beat the Cowboys.
Again, me riding with Kyler and Kenyon Drake. I had the Cardinals, and you two had the Cowboys.
I can't believe I picked the Cowboys.
I don't know why I did either.
No, I've got no idea. But what were the scores for this week then, Mikey? And what were the total league table?
In third place for just the week alone, Adam on 7 out of 14, so 500 again. Above.
Have you finished anything other than third in these predictions?
No, I'm not very good at this.
Kai in second place with 8 out of 14, and I was the winner this week with 10 out of 14 correct, which means that the total scores, there is now a joint tie at the top, but in last place but also second place is
second,
Adam,
not last, second.
30 out of 59, so you're above 500 again.
Yep, I'll take that.
Plane. And myself and Kai are both on 38 out of 59.
Eight points ahead of me.
I really want this to be a tie one week because for the last 2 weeks I have picked the best tiebreaker team.
For anybody that doesn't know, we pick a tie-break player that's outside the top 10 at a specific position, and whoever scores most fantasy points will win that tie-break. This week it was defences, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, but we'll see what it is for next week.
I took the Dolphins D, by the way, who had a shutout.
Oh yeah, they did them well.
But when you look at it as well, you're only 8 behind Adam. That can change in 2 weeks easily.
So if you and Kai don't play 1 week, then I have a chance.
Adam would still finish behind us.
Because I'm obviously like
actually,
7.
I've just realised I haven't actually given my outlandish claim of the week yet.
Mikey's outlandish claim. I'm getting
because we haven't spoke about this team because they were on a bye week.
Oh, right, okay.
But judging by what me and Kai have spoke about this week since the last podcast, I actually think he will agree with me, which is uncommon for the outlandish claim. I think the Las Vegas Raiders make the playoffs with an 11-5 or a 10-6 record, and I think they'll beat the Browns and the Colts to the playoffs in the AFC.
Mikey's outlandish claim of the week.
Should maybe get a professional singer in to do that.
I mean, you have got a professional one right here, so we're okay.
I would tend to agree with you on them making the playoffs. I'm not so sure about the record.
I feel 11-5 is quite high, so
I don't think they'll quite get to that record.
I ran through their schedule, and I don't know. I'm liking Derek Carr this year, Josh Jacobs. That's mine. And the reason that I think that the Browns won't make the playoffs instead is obviously because they're in the same division as the Steelers and the Ravens, and the Colts are in the same division with the Titans. Colts are in the same division as the Titans, and I did say that I think the Texans will have a better second half of the year. So I don't think the Colts will make the playoffs. I know one of you said, I think it was yourself, Adam, about them maybe making the Super Bowl, but I don't think Philip Rivers has got what it takes to do that. So
I think actually that's the bit of the pick that's maybe slightly more outlandish, is the fact that the Browns and Colts will miss out.
Yeah, that's quite a mouthy, wordy, outlandish claim. So that's Raiders making the playoffs, the type of record that they'll have, and who they'll beat to the playoffs. I'll add it to my notes for the year.
I was going to say, to clarify, that Mikey is making a note of all of these, so we're trusting him not to change them throughout the season. He's making a note of all of these, and at the end of the season we'll see how many of them came true.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, we'll do our own league table. We'll see if he's below 500, he'll have to do a forfeit. Is that?
Although one thing that I don't think will happen.
That sounds good.
I think Justin Jefferson's a lock for Offensive Rookie of the Year. So,
like, you're putting money on Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow last week.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot you had that bit as well. Yeah. But
yeah.
I think that's us. We've done everything. That's unusual. Thank you for joining us, Kai and Mikey. Thank you for joining us this week. We look forward to speaking again next week with another slate of games.
Wait, before we broadcast this, who do you think will win Thursday night football tonight?
Oh, that's true. We need to do the prediction for Thursday night.
Eagles Giants.
The Giants are going to win it.
The Giants.
I'm going with my team.
You just have so many injuries. I can't back you.
Yeah,
Boston Scott masterclass incoming against a leaky Giants defense.
Yeah. I think the Giants. I think it'll be a very.
I'm sticking
game.
with my team. You can slag me either way.
Yep, that's fine. Well, there you go. The two of us, the Packers fans, vote against the Eagles fan for that prediction there. So thank you for joining us, Kai. Thank you for joining us, Mikey. We'll leave it there and we'll
Pleasure.
speak to you both next week. See you later on. Bye.